Have you ever come across an unauthenticated API endpoint? And as you're looking at the code, it's obvious that it kind of should be authenticated. It's some sensitive data that's being passed through this part of the system. Now, it's easy to blame the developer who wrote it, say, what an idiot, just shouldn't be writing code anymore. No, I don't think that's an appropriate response because let's face it, we've all made mistakes. We've all done things that we look back on as like, shoot, I should not have done that. And probably a number of us have even taken down a production website, probably once in our career, thereabouts. So mistakes happen. But at the end of the day, this is actually a super easy one to fix. And we're going to focus on the solution here as opposed to doing the blame game here, running around with that. In the form of a question here today, as we're going to also look at several answers and identify which one is the correct answer for this. Let's take a look at this question. You've developed a custom API endpoint in Adobe Commerce. This endpoint creates new entries in a custom database table. Additionally, you are creating this for an external company, and they need to only have access to this endpoint. We're seeing some authentication here. Let's keep moving on. How can you accomplish this? We have 3 different answers, and let's see which one is the most viable of all 3, or the best answer. Might be all 3 are viable in a situation like this. Let's take a look. A, define the API route in webapi.xml with a resource, then assign the default administrator's role in the admin panel. B, define a resource in the the acl.xml file and associate this permission with the API endpoint in the webapi.xml file. Or C, modify the database schema to restrict write access only for the API. All right, so we have some reasonable options here. Let's look at each one of these individually, then we will talk about the right answer and give you a quick code example as well. Make it as super simple as possible. All right, A, define the API route in webapi.xml with a resource, then assign the default administrator's role with a admin in the admin panel. Now, while on the surface, this one sounds somewhat plausible, it doesn't really capture the whole deal. So if we look at webapi.xml, in fact, let me jump over to my computer here. We have a webapi.xml file. This is out of the bundle products API, REST API definition here, webapi.xml. We have our resources here. So we have a resource, but this is this is pointing to Magento catalog products, which is another one here. So it's specified somewhere else. Ultimately, it's specified in module catalog, Etsy, acl.xml, and we will see it's one of these here products right here. So A just doesn't seem like gets the full story. And then there's something about this last part, this assign the default administrator. It's there, it's an option, but it's not necessarily a good option. So I think we can jump past that one. A would not be a correct answer in this type of a situation. Now let's look at B. Define a resource in the acl.xml file and associate this permission with the API endpoint in webapi.xml. So we already kind of are seeing this right here. I've already shown you the workings of this. So we have our acl.xml file. We have a resource that's defined in here with our title and basically just the title and the resource ID are the 2 primary ones that are needed. But we have our webapi.xml file, and all we do is specify the resource ref is equal to this, which is the ID as specified in our acl.xml file. Pretty simple. Now, one thing to note is that if you specify 2 in here, it is an and condition. So you need to have Magento catalog products and, categories or something else. You would have to have both of those associated with your user profile or the integration user profile. And so that could be something to consider and might help to make things a little more granular, etc. But at the end of the day, you have to have both of those specified on that access profile. I'm thinking, and I think you're probably following along here as well, that B is the correct answer. So we want to define a resource in the acl.xml file, and then we're going to use the webapi.xml file to associate this. I think that's a pretty reasonable answer, but just to make sure, let's look at the last one and see how that works. Modify the database schema to restrict write access only for the API. That would be kind of nice if there was a direct connection. We write a ton of boilerplate in Magento. I was literally having a conversation today with somebody about that. And yeah, tons and tons of boilerplate. But in this type of a situation, it doesn't really work. It's a pipe dream. It's a wish. And maybe someday we will get a wish accomplished. But for now, we have to be content with writing lots of boilerplate. In the meantime, look forward to our next video.